All right, so we're set. We'll do a little review. We'll just point out, remind everybody about study aids as we get ready for this this next test, which is uh, covering what you see there: protein, the final of the three macronutrients, and energy metabolism. Um, and energy balance uh, and weight management. Okay, so that's chapters 6 through 9. The format of the exam is similar to the first, 40 questions, 100 minutes, and completed at one sitting. And lockdown browser required. 35 multiple choice and five uh, short answer short answer questions. Continue on. Mind tap activities, really important to complete those. That's a big portion of the final grade. And we'll point out other things to be aware of. These highlighted study outlines, study guides are important. And when you look at them, you should be recalling the material that you saw in um, as you're reading and through MindTap. The highlighted are just that, the major points that will definitely be in some of the multiple choice and some of the possibly in the short answer essay questions. For example, in protein, uh, we always want to be aware of how the chemical structure differs from the other macronutrients. For protein, a unique aspect is that they contain nitrogen, and and also that amino acids are unique in terms of macronutrients. Um, in that they don't hang around. We don't store amino acids as amino acids. They're always put into function. They're put into structure. They're put into enzymes. They're put into parts of cell walls, parts of bone, even. Uh, so they're immediately either used, put into structure, or we break them down and pull out that nitrogen, um, deamination, and make them into their final fate. And that is, we get rid of it through ammonia and ultimately into urea and get rid of that. Because amino acids just are not good to be floating around. They could be reactive. They could become toxic in the body in certain ways. Nine essential amino acids. No need to know them, but know that there are that many essentials, and we make all the other ones from those. In total, we need 20 to make all our everything that we use amino acids for, and making proteins is 20 amino acids, but nine of them are uh, are essential to get uh, in our eating pattern. So that's a big chunk of protein, amino acids. Then there's other aspects that are important. This concept of being balanced. Nitrogen is a way to see that it's a fingerprint of normal metabolism. If we're in positive nitrogen balance or negative balance, we really want to be in equilibrium. This is something that could be measured clinically. Uh, for instance, if there's an individual that is rapidly building. For instance, um, pregnant women or someone that's suffering a traumatic injury. That is going to be, we're absorbing a lot. We need a lot of protein. We're going to be in positive balance, positive nitrogen balance, as opposed to the other extreme. You could think about that. High quality protein. Uh, that's balanced in the essential amino acids. High quality is also digestible, well digestible. Not necessary for us to always be taking in high quality protein, but we want to balance that with other protein that might supplement the amino acids that are needed. The great example is um, rice is lacking a couple amino acids, and beans have those amino acids. So rice and beans makes a perfect balance of the nine essential amino acids. Uh, so these study guides really serve as really a nice wrap up. Don't use these as the only thing, of course, that you're studying or reading, but they're a really nice condensed version of all the material. Thinking questions, these also are in these. Some of the guides have these, and these give you an example of what these open-ended or short answer questions involve. They pick something that's not too focused, but something that you could write a few sentences about. The first one there, nice example, characteristics account for complexity of protein as compared to carbohydrates and lipids. Well, protein made up of those, we said 20 amino acids, and there are lots of ways that could be sequenced, and that's why proteins could be so numerous in what they are, and they have tremendous potential in their functioning. And we're continuously making uh, protein in in our cells, putting out uh, directions from, of course, from inside the cells, and think a little bit about those the ways that we produce proteins, where we get the maps, translation, transcription, that sort of thing. So that's uniqueness of the complexity of protein compared to carbohydrates and lipids, which comparatively are much simpler. Energy metabolism, there's some important stuff there. Think about where what's what's the protein got to do with it, what's the lipid got to do with it, what's the carbohydrate. So carbohydrate is the main fuel in our energy metabolism. Uh, all our carbohydrate, whatever form it is, ultimately gets made into glucose, and glucose is what enters and how we will be extracting the reducing power to make that energy currency, and that's the ATP. And only when we're lacking glucose or supply of glucose is when we would metabolize or break down fats or fatty acids, and then, if necessary, move on to metabolizing or breaking down protein. Of course, we'd rather not be breaking down protein or using amino acids, because that is theoretically um, destroying some functioning protein, whether it's muscle, mostly could be muscle or could be some other things that we start to break down if we're lacking other substrate to make energy. Uh, so that's a last uh, kind of a last when we're really starving. So there's a in the book there's very nice figures of showing the sequence of use of glucose, use of glycogen, then moving on using stored adipose or fat tissue, and then uh, in starvation to start breaking down protein for generating energy. Uh, so we have uh, two two large processes to generate these ATP. First is the glycolysis, and the glycolysis could work anaerobically and generate a certain amount of reducing power to make ATP. The more efficiently is if we have oxygen, and then we could make use of the TCA cycle or citric acid cycle. Ultimately, the reducing power goes to the uh, electron transport chain, which generates the ATP. Also, there's uh, what is clean waste products. We make some water, we make some CO2 in the process. Okay. Uh, what else we have here? So anabolism and catabolism, building reactions, making muscle, making antibodies, making things, catabolism, breaking down. So we break down in our digestion, we break down foods to macromolecules. We have fiber, we have vitamins and minerals. And we'll talk about vitamins next few chapters. Energy balance. This is what's the combination of our nervous system and our endocrinology system to keep us in balance. And where do we use our energy? Well, it's a combination of things, activities we use. It could be emotional. Other things could influence how our energy is balanced, temperature of our environment, perhaps. Um, then we talk about body composition uh, and how do we first define body composition? Well, the first way is the BMI, body mass index. It's a very gross uh, kind of um, parameter, but it's a first take on where do we stand in terms of potential risk down the road or later on? What kind of stresses maybe we're putting on our body, and that's it's seen as a really rough measure of predicting of health. Most physicians now add at least uh, waist circumference as another parameter, looking at body composition in terms of prediction of general health or risk of chronic disease. Body composition we look at, and the chronic disease or predictors we'd like to uh, take away from body composition. That's risk of heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. And related chronic disease might be the high blood pressure and stroke. The way that we get a rough measure of energy, so it's down there in food composition, a bomb calorimeter. So that's a way to translate a little more accurately. That's an empirical laboratory measurement of the energy content of a food or a food product or even a meal. We did it before we made energy calculations. We said, okay, there's this much amount of protein. Each gram of protein could be translated into 4 kcals. Each gram of lipid or fat can be translated into 9 kcals. Well, bomb calorimetry does it a little more empirically with a measurement of in a device called a bomb calorimeter. It combusts and then with a certain amount of energy and measures the release of heat, and another way to be more accurate in how much heat or energy could be released from a food item. And chapter 9 um, starts to pull some of these ideas of risks in terms of nutrition and body composition and predicted risks for chronic disease. And mainly that's overweight and obesity and diabetes. And some terms there. And so just to make sure that you've listened to and maybe listened to again uh, Dr. Amir's recording of a lecture that she made from this chapter. We revisit some of these concepts later on in chapter 18. 18, it's a chapter that called disease prevention or nutrition and health was a earlier name. Some definitions are included there, things like set point, what is a fat cell. It's now known that adipose tissue is not just a deposit of lipid, but actually a tissue that responds to signals, messages, even hormones. This idea here of fat cell development, that's a relatively new distinction that it's not that we have a certain range or number of fat cells that we maintain that's developed early in life, and it's just the relative size of these fat cells that contribute to body composition and potentially overweight and obesity. A reminder that these are also very good study guides, these that are found in the additional study materials. Really good to look at. Another kind of a colorful way to look at our material. This one is the chapter 7 one, so make sure that you review these two. They're extracted figures and some of the high points from the chapters and the things we're learning. This is a really nice diagram of, well, just energy yielding from a cheeseburger and the components of it, and how carbohydrates go directly into glucose, amino acids. If we do break down and use amino acids for protein, it goes to this 3-carbon substance called pyruvate. Pyruvate then goes further to acetyl-CoA. Going to acetyl-CoA, we need to be aerobic to get into the TCA cycle. So if we're in an anaerobic state, perhaps in extreme exercise or some other condition, then we won't maximize the energy from any of the energy yielding substrates. We would just get the energy that comes out of the glycolysis that's right here. This is glycolysis, and this is the aerobic or more energy extracting process of the TCA cycle. Uh, and lipids or fats, we derive our reduction power, which makes our ATP by this beta oxidation of fatty acids that should recall, and that goes directly to acetyl-CoA. Acetyl-CoA is equivalent to a two carbon substances that enter the TCA cycle. And these are good questions to review. The answers are on the bottom of this this document, but good questions that, and some of them appear on our exams. Another chapter 8 and chapter 9. So make sure that you review these relatively short kind of study documents, which don't appear in this presentation any longer in the newer editions of the textbook. So this is from an earlier version of the textbook. I think maybe it's 13 or so, but whatever the version was. Okay, just a reminder to make sure you've listened to this lecture from Dr. Muir. And some of the things that were in her lecture, important, especially those that are going further into health-related professions. Good things to review and to know the importance of obesity, diabetes, and relation to chronic diseases. Some other questions just to think about obesogenic environment. So what are we talking about there? That's usually a question that I put on our tests. Obesogenic, what could one do or recognize what an obesogenic environment? So that's a something that we experience externally that may entice us maybe to indulge a little too much, or it could be a an environment that we're in. Perhaps we don't live near places to purchase healthier food. What's a better way to get non-processed foods, perhaps. That's how we can modify our environment. We might not decide to go to overindulging type places or social environments that might entice us to eat more than we want to or should, but because we're involved with this uh, uh, going to um, more to congregate and go out on a regular basis, perhaps, and indulge a little too much. So that's an obesogenic environment. And there's some other good questions there. So I have maybe some the multiple choice questions here just as a review of some of the topics that that we've been okay. It's sum of all metabolism of sum of all chemical reactions. That's it's and it's good to recognize each of all these that we have here: digestion, metabolism, catabolism, homeostasis, osmosis. Maybe you'll You should recognize all those. And of course, this is metabolism. Where do we derive our energy from? Well, it is mostly glucose and fatty acids. We certainly don't get energy directly from these, although we need those as kind of catalysts along the way. Glycolysis, what is that? That's the anaerobic, and whoops, this is wrong. Glycolysis is the anaerobic part. Yeah, it doesn't generate abundant. What it does, I'm sorry about this. This is the right answer. It converts glucose to pyruvate. Okay, it's glucose, six carbon substrate. We split it in two through glycolysis. We get some energy into two pyruvate molecules. And if it's not aerobic, then those pyruvate do not go into the Krebs cycle. So make sure we're straight on that. Gotta correct that. Okay, pyruvate to acetyl-CoA. Okay, so pyruvate's three. This is two. It's one step further. And this is important because it's non-reversible. We can't go from acetyl-CoA back to glucose. Now, why would we do that? There are we can we can reverse before. We can take pyruvate and go back to glucose. So because there's certain tissues in the body that preferentially require glucose for energy, and those are the brain, red blood cells, and maybe there's some other tissues, but those are the main ones. So sometimes we want to go from pyruvate back up to glucose, and it's irreversible. Uh, and from pyruvate to glucose, that's what's known as gluconeogenesis. Complete oxidation, acetyl-CoA enters the TCA cycle. So, body energy stores for the future. This is, it's none of these. We don't want to see this as a storage of protein that's breaking down proteins that we made. Acetyl-CoA is this two carbon. It's not really storage, it's a temporal molecule. Ketone bodies, that's a result of trying to produce something and lacking glucose. We might produce some ketone bodies to try to uh, uh, delay when until we get more glucose in our body for the brain mostly. Yes, we do. Of course, we store energy in triglycerides in adipose. Okay, so this relates to what we just said there. Dietary nutrient most rapidly reverse state of ketosis. So that would be if we got carbohydrate in the system, then we don't have to be um, making ketone bodies to try to uh, uh, give energy substance to the brain. So as soon as we get carbohydrate, we stop ketosis. So ketosis over a long period of time potentially could be dangerous because it starts to add acid or acidifies our bloodstream, and that could be potentially severe. Could go into certain states of shock because anytime we're out of a narrow range of pH of the bloodstream, um, the body starts to reject things. It starts to shut down things because it knows something's wrong. Catabolic means breaking down. So this is a bit tricky. We got to watch the wording here, which is breaking down glucose from glycerol. It's actually the other way. Uh, we would use glycerol sometimes to produce glucose. Glycerol is 3 carbon. Pyruvate from glucose. Pyruvate from glucose. Okay, so breaking down glucose to pyruvate, that sounds right. And there's another wrong answer. So this is the right answer. Because glucose, we could break that down to pyruvate, 6 carbon to 3 carbon. Albumin from amino acids, that's anabolic. So we're building albumin. Albumin is a complex protein that is in bloodstream that buffers the bloodstream. All right, coenzyme. Uh, Coenzymes, they help enzymes work. They're not they're not destroyed in the process. Okay, so it's small, it's a part, or it helps an enzyme. Um, it helps the enzyme bind organic reactants to the enzyme. These could be vitamins and minerals. Okay, why is fatty acid the denser in energy compared to the other energy yielding nutrients? That's mainly we're talking about carbohydrates. And the difference is there's more carbon hydrogen bonds in fatty acids compared to carbohydrates. Okay, so this is what feature metabolism of surplus fat, dietary fat. So what happens to dietary fat in surplus? Well, we store that, and that is adipose tissue, which is really fat cells that take up fatty acids. It actually makes the fatty acids into triglycerides, and that's how it's stored. Triglycerides also stored in the liver. So an excess of lipids, of fatty acids floating around is a negative. It's not good. We are enlarging the fat cells, adipose cells. We're also storing maybe too much in the liver, contributing to the condition of fatty liver. Not good. All right, gram for gram, fats is the most dense, energy dense. Uh, so we had this kind of calculation earlier. Um, and so 2,200 kcals, it's kind of an average intake for uh, on average. So if we say 40% is from fat, 20% is from protein, so that means 40% is carbohydrate. That's what's remaining. So we would multiply two 2,200 by 40%, and then Uh, that's the kcals. Then we would divide that by 4. And if you do that math, you come out with 220, uh, 220 grams. So 220 grams multiplied by 4 kcals per gram comes out to that 40% of 2,220, 2,200. So you got to remember those conversion factors, right? Fat is 9 kcals per gram, carbohydrate and protein of 4 kcals per gram. For gluconeogenesis, this is using non-glucose substrate to make glucose when you're lacking glucose. And majority of this takes place in the liver. This is a body composition kind of question. Visceral fat is stored uh, chiefly where? And that's around abdominal organs. And so that's the bad kind of storage of fat. Storage elsewhere is safer because it's not near organs. It's not close to the liver. It's not close to the pancreas or even the heart. So, um, and this is it is as we'd see in the chapter. It shows a picture of in general males versus females, and males have more commonly disposition of fat uh, in the abdominal area as opposed to maybe this part, thighs or lower part of our body. Possible metabolic reaction in the cell. So which is the correct way is what this is asking. So pyruvate, urea is kind of simple molecule, but it has nitrogen, oxygen, and so lactate to pyruvate, lactate to pyruvate. Those those happen. They're very similar, right? Acetyl-CoA to pyruvate. This one doesn't go that direction. As soon as it's acetyl-CoA, it can't go too larger. This is two carbon. This is three carbon. Carbon dioxide to glycerol. That's not reasonable in the cell. Remember, glycerol is the backbone of triglycerides. It's a three carbon molecule. Fatty acids to glucose. Okay, and we also don't do that. We can't do that. It would be nice if we could do that, but that doesn't happen. Fatty acids are metabolized by taking off two carbons at a time and make them into acetyl-CoA. So lactate to pyruvate, this could happen, and this occurs in the liver. It's this if we're anaerobic and we cannot we can't continue into the TCA cycle. We have a buildup of what turns into lactate. Our muscles might do this in anaerobic. Lactic acid or lactate contributes to fatigue of muscle. So we would like to have this happen to change the lactate back into pyruvate. That's called the Cori cycle. Okay, we should know this. The powerhouse of the cell is the mitochondria. It's good to think about what the other terms are and what their importance are. What's true about the body mass index? So it's that first one. It has a rough correlation to um, the possibility of disease risks down the road. So the rate at which a nutrient is absorbed is bioavailability. So there's a couple of things involved with that. How much is there in a food, perhaps, and its ability for us to absorb the nutrients efficiently. So we'd have to be able to digest it uh, to a place, to its consistency, uh, to be absorbed. So that's a whole process there and a quality. Okay, a little bit more here. So which contributes to most of our weight, and that's water. We do have a good amount of protein, and that varies among us, how much muscle to fat to water we have. Calcium is we have a lot of calcium. It's in our structure, in our bones. Iron, uh, where do we have iron? It's in our bloodstream, in our muscles. And how do we carry? How do we carry oxygen? That's the hemoglobin. So you should know these other forms of that have iron.
Oh,
Where is uh, myoglobin? What's transferrin, ferritin? These are other uh, places that iron is important. Okay, this jumps to our next chapter, FAD. That's riboflavin. Don't worry about that now, but which of the following is not a feature? Okay, sorry, we're spilling over into the next uh, the next chapters. Okay. This I think I mentioned this before. This is this is the burger joint in New York City. Um, uh, if you like burgers, or the veggie burger is the Impossible Burger is very good there also. Uh, it's on West 56th Street between 6th and 7th Avenue, if you're interested. Okay, so that's some questions just to jog our memory and our thinking about these last few chapters. Um, so you have amino acids, proteins, have energy, body composition, and the last one was risk, mainly obesity, chronic diseases related to weight management. We don't speak too much about the other extreme of weight management. It's not as big a issue in general. That's uh, we talk a little bit about that in a later chapter where athletes, in particular, women athletes that maybe over uh, and not keeping up nutrition and weight is too low, but that's not as significant in today's society as the other extreme, overweight and obesity. Uh, any comments, questions in particular about what we're talking about here? Well, that's what I had to review. Um, and any follow-up questions, any uh, technical questions, ask or just reach out to me in any other way. Okay. So thanks for coming. And this will be it'll be posted also, at least my the screen and my voice if I look at it again. Okay. All right. Bye-bye. The exam will open Sunday, Monday, and good luck on it.
okay, thank